My name is Brian Lopez, and I'm excited to be here today. I'd like to introduce my English language learner. He's right here. So he's very, very fond of trying to learn language. And I will begin sharing my screen. I will paste the link to my bit.ly in the chat. Oh, let's see, where's the chat? There it is. So it goes here, and there we go. Please tell me, please let me know if the links don't work. I kind of tend to double check everything, but then I get very paranoid that things don't work when you need them to work. So I didn't do it on purpose. It might have just been a slip. So I will go ahead and share my screen, and I will start now. Okay. So a disclaimer that I have is I'm not used to the chat when I use Zoom. In my classroom, I encourage the use of the English language because that's like very, very important. So if I don't see the chat, I apologize. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just not used to it. And then when you're in full screen presenting, it's a little bit harder to keep up with the chat. If you have questions, please go ahead and interrupt and say, I have a question, and I'll totally stop where I'm at and answer your question. And so here is the bit.ly. I also put it into the chat box. If you have a moment, it would be great either now or a little bit later today. If you could click the link number 2 and introduce yourself on the Flipgrid. I like to see who I am influencing and what they got from my presentation. So that is an introduction one.
And I will be moderating the chat too. So if you have other questions, we can put them into the chat and then we'll pause and answer them as well. So
thank you. So I will do my best to have to pause at every segment, like at every transition point to ask questions for that time. But like I said, feel free to ask questions, and here we go. Buckle up. So this is my presentation, Digital Tools for Creativity with English Language Learners. I like to think of this as a project-based approach. So this is a project, and I will be showing you the tools that I use to make this project a reality and a success for English language learners. So this, welcome to my presentation. This project was completed by first grade ELL students. And this was what my classroom used to look like. It's changed like at least 10 times, and then plus now we went online. So that's a rough draft. My name, like I said, my name is Brian Lopez. This is my 4th year working as an ELD and intervention teacher. I have experience working with TK through 6th grade. For the Rosemead School District, I graduated from Azusa Pacific School of Education in 2016 with a master's in digital teaching and learning, which was a lot of fun. I recently joined the CUE Los Angeles board for the next 3 years. I'm very excited about that. Very excited about taking EdTech above and beyond. I have a list of several certifications that I get. My belief is that I like to get certified in all the tools that I use every day to get the most from them. So I have all of those. I was newly minted Google Certified Trainer. That took me a while, but I'm very excited, and I will show you all the tools that I used, and let's get started. So the way that I started this as a career presentation. So like I said, my name is Brian Lopez. I work with ELD students and sometimes intervention students. My target population is the ones that scored the lowest on their EL test. So I work with like level 1s, and if there's none, then I work with level 2s on the for their LPAC score. And so my students need a lot of support, and my students do have a media release, but because this is recorded, this is across multiple platforms, I decided to take it up a level and keep their privacy private. The EdTech tools I use, the first thing is each student in my classroom has a one-to-one device, which really made this project a lot easier to do because they all had their own device. So I use Flipgrid, Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Classroom, and Epic Books. A A routine in the classroom, whether it's online or offline or at school, I think a routine is vital for success. So a tech routine along with your instructional routine is very important to have it down, especially when you teach groups of students in a 30-minute blocks, which is what I do. The first thing that was vital to my success, I'm sorry, to the student success, is that I give every student a composition book, and either in the back or the front of the composition book, I put in I include their login information so that they don't have to depend on me, and they can be self-sufficient when signing into their Chromebook. And this saves a lot of time. This saves the student a lot of time and anxiety, because they know where to go to be successful in order to log into their one-to-one device. Google Classroom. So Google Classroom is the key to all this. This is where everything is held. And so the one thing that I like about Google Classroom is that the kids don't have to type in like long URLs or anything. They just click on exactly where you want them to go, and you post everything in your Google Classroom. For the purpose of this workshop, because Google Classroom is tied to names and district restrictions, I decided to have our Google Classroom experience be on a Google Doc for us. So everything that is on the Google Doc, that is what I would paste into my Google Classroom. So that is what the substitute is for today's experience. So like I said, the most important thing about Google Classroom is that students just click and they get to the exact spot where you want them to go. And especially if they don't know the language, this is a very valuable tool. Now, my most powerful tool, I think, is Flipgrid, because the students just click, speak, and record. Now, this instructional routine did take some time to go from. So first, I had to teach Google Classroom, and then once we mastered that, then I added another layer, which was using Flipgrid. And the students really enjoy this tool. The one disclaimer I have is that the very first time that you introduce it, you just let them make funny faces and click around for like good 5 minutes so they get all of that out of their system. And then once that's done, then you can go ahead and work with the platform to have students record videos of themselves. One cool technique is that Flipgrid allows you to share your code directly into Google Classroom. So if you see on my screen here from number 1, you can just click share and you share directly to Google Classroom, and you don't have to copy and paste it. But if you could also copy and paste it as well. So it makes it easy for the teacher too. Then a very valuable resource I use is Epic Books. As I said, I am an Epic Books ambassador, so there's my tag there. And the one thing I love about Epic Books is that it has a function that is called Read to Me. And when you're an English language learner and you don't know how to read, this is an excellent way to be able to be exposed to the English language and to be able to listen to a book. And this is another tool and another layer that I teach, and students really, really enjoy this tool as well. And as a teaching tool, I like that I can access almost any book I want in the classroom, like on demand. So this is very good, and I don't have to go and scratch my head trying to find the exact book. So this is a very valuable tool. Like I said, I only have a 30-minute block to teach, and this helps me very much. This is also free for all teachers during it's free for teachers wherever you are, and it's free for students, and it has a certain time limit on that as well. So my entire project, are there any questions about the tools that I use or that I have introduced up until this point?
If you have a question, you can go ahead and unmute, or you can type it in the chat.
Okay, I took a pause. If there are no questions, I will go on. Okay, so my entire presentation is based on a career lesson, and those are the tools that I use. And each tool was taught independently, and then I was able to combine all of them together. And I think that's what the key is. You teach multiple tools, you teach them all till the students are successful, and then you just keep challenging them and pushing them beyond their limits to be successful. So the question that I presented was, what do I want to be when I grow up? And that question alone created a lot of buy-in from the students. So they were essentially owning their own career presentation that they are creating. The first thing they had to do was select a career that they wanted to use. I shared this Google Sheet using Google Classroom, and I had to teach how to use Google Sheets, but only on this sheet. So they didn't have to master the entire set of Google Sheets. They just had to master how to find your box and how to type inside your box. I assign numbers to every student that I work with, and that is an invaluable tool when you are trying to organize all your thoughts, and especially when it comes to doing work online. So, for example, I would tell student number one that they have to stay within box number one, student number two within box number two, and so forth and so on. Exactly like they do when they come into the classroom. So the question here is that they type their name, they put their career choice, and when they were all done, I locked the sheet and I corrected their spelling so that I could understand it. I do not penalize students for spelling mistakes. In fact, I encourage them to use their sounding skills as I encourage them to use their letter sound skills as much as possible. So as long as they wrote the word and it kind of sounds the way that it's there, and that they can read it back to me, then that is a win. So it's all here on the Google Sheet. And like I said, the first time you use Google Sheets, it is a little bit chaotic because they're excited, they're screaming, and they're all over the place. And my rule is, if somebody typed in your box, raise your hand, because I don't know. So this was very fun, and it was a lot of work. So with that in mind, I would like all of us to try it so that you could see it from a student point of view. I mean, we do this as adults, but from the student that does not speak English well or not speak English at all, this tech routine for just Google Sheets is very valuable. So if you are in the audience, please click on link number 5 in your bit.ly. If you're following along in the presentation, just go ahead and click anywhere on this box and it'll take you right there.
And I did just put the bit.ly in one more time.
Yes, the bit.ly, I'll put it in right.
I did, I put it in multiple times, Brian.
Fantastic. Let me just find my box and we'll go right here. Okay, so you type in your name. So student number 1 goes in box number 1, and student number 1 wants to be a neurosurgeon, which they have fantastic spelling. So right here where it says teacher spelling, right? So here is where I would lock the sheet over here on the settings so that no one can edit it afterwards, because students always want to see that they have the correct spelling. So afterwards, I would lock the spelling here, and then they could not change their answer because I wanted authentic work from them. So I would go here and be like, oh, you spelled it right, or I'll just give them a check so I don't have to confuse them with anything else. So everything was, oh, here's my Secretary of Education, welcome. And so this is how I would do it. So like I said, I would give them a chance here. They would all fill in their boxes here. I would model it as I showed down here, where I was number 5. Now, I was told that I could not be a custodian, even though I said that's like the best job in the school. The students said that my next career move from teacher would have to be a principal. So I said, okay, I'll be a principal. And they wanted to have a boy principal. So I was very excited about that. And that's why I put principal for myself there as well. And with that in mind, we will move on. Are there any questions about Google Sheets? The one thing I do want to say is, like I said, this was done by first graders that speak very little to no English, and to be able to accomplish this on their own is like mind-blowing, because us as adults, we take this for granted, but when you have to differentiate the instruction to break it down to this type of level and where they work here, it's pretty fascinating. So I will finish this one and let's go on to the next one if there are no questions. Okay. So my next one was, did I click this right? Yes, career selection. So after they chose the careers that they wanted to be and we talked about them, we moved on to having an individual lesson on each career. And the fascinating part about this was the students would take note of which career was coming next, and they would be excited on when their day was to learn what they needed to learn. And I even heard the students say, "Oh, I can't be late this day because we're going to be talking about a police officer." So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So this really had a lot of student engagement where the student wanted to go to school, they wanted to go to my class, they wanted to do all this work, and they wanted to use their computer. The very first thing that we did, I showed them a video of how to become a deputy sheriff from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. And I'll just play a couple seconds of this clip so you can see what they say, and then I'll tell you the reaction that the students had.
Hi, I'm Deputy Torrance.
Hi, I'm Deputy Delgadillo.
Today we're going to walk you through what a test day consists of. We're going to guide you through it step by step and take you to each station so you know exactly what to expect. Keep in mind that on the test day you're going to have two portions. It's going to be a written exam and a physical exam.
Hey guys, the test can be somewhat long, so make sure you pay attention to the instructions and listen to your proctors. Hey guys.
So
hi, I'm Deputy
I'll stop
Torrance.
right there as soon as I find the pause button. Now, when the students heard written test, they're like, "Mr. Lopez, what does a written test mean?" And then so I had to explain, well, that means you have to write. And that alone discouraged some of them because they're like, well, we have to learn how to write well. We have to learn how to write using the English language. So that was very good that they could see that. And the next question they had was, well, what's a physical ability test? So if I scroll down the video, it should be down here where it says, let's see. I've done this a couple of times, so I get a little bit lost.
You may rest between sit-ups, lying on the mat, but the timer will not stop. Your arms must maintain in constant contact with the chest while performing.
So the students were like, well, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. And we had a whole conversation about how you have to be physically fit. And one student said, yeah, you have to be able to run after the bad guys. And I said, that is correct. You have to be able to run and chase them down or run away from the situation. So if you can't run, maybe that's not a very good choice for you to do. So this was very, this was a very good eye-opening experience for the students. So what I had them do, I showed them this I showed them the video on the projector. I wrote the notes down that I took on the board, and I also had the students copy down the work from the board into their composition books. And at the same time, on the side, I documented all of what I put on the board and what they put in their journals into a Google Doc. Now, they did not use Google Docs per se, but they were exposed to the Google Doc process. And then I was able to put in the links. And when one student was absent, I needed to go back to see what I had. And before I even said anything, the student said, hey, Mr. Lopez, go back to your Google Doc. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I go to the Google Doc because that's where the video was. So this is a very good tool. And so the students were exposed to the Google Doc. And the police officer lesson was fascinating because this student had told me that they want to be a police car. And what they were trying to say is that they want to be a police officer so that they can ride in a police car or they could have a police car. So that was a whole different approach to dissecting language. And let's go on to the next one. In addition to learning about being a police officer, they used Epic Books to see what they could find on being a police officer. And I believe I captured that here.
Officer Bob hears. On my way, he says.
So with this one, the student's English level was not as developed as he wanted, but his tech skills were on task where the student was able to use Epic Books, type in the word police officer, and find a police officer book that they could use to listen to during class time as part of their research. So the Epic Books was a very valuable tool for this.
Officer Bob.
So like I said, each student, we had a lesson on police officers, we had a classroom lesson on basketball players, soccer players, a doctor, an artist. The basketball player was a twofer, which was great. And so was the artist. And the students learned about different things. They learned about different experiences, and they really bought into this entire system of learning technology and learning what they want to be when they grow up. So I was very inspired after this project. So from that, we go to the career observations, and like I said, this was me, the teacher, modeling alongside them how I would document as a teacher, or like I tell them, as a fifth grader, on how to put all of their work here, because they all want to be upper grade students and not lower grade students. So I challenge them to keep me focused on being a fifth grader as well. So this is all my documentation from when I gave all these, I'm sorry, all of these lessons. Are there any questions about Google Docs or career observations or taking notes? Okay, let's go on. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention. As we watched the videos, we all contributed to these notes. For example, where it says D is for doctor, they would watch the video. I would ask them what was the important part from the first, say, 10, 15 seconds. They would all think about it, and then I would write down the main idea that they got from it. So it was a great way to show them how to take notes. So from that, we went on to Google Slides. And so my philosophy is, like, you learn as you go. And the students learned, they didn't master how to use Google Slides to its entirety, but they mastered how to do this project using this Google Slide as we went. So this is the Google Slide that I created. I created a master slide, and I had it exactly as I wanted. And as you can see, there is a number 1 here. So we would work on box number 1, box number 2, box number 3, box number 4. I taught this in a sequential format. And I also said, okay, student number 1 goes in box number 1 on the left, or on table number 1 on my left-hand side. Student number 5 goes here, and 6 and 7. So this idea transferred directly from the Google Sheets, where student number 1 had to stay in box number 1 and 2 and 3 and so forth and so on. So we applied that same idea and routine to Google Slides. And so here I would say, okay, student number 1, you need help with box number 1 or box number 2, box number 3, or box number 4 inside of your Google Slide. So they were like, well, Mr. Lopez, I need help with number 3. Well, I mean, they didn't say that in that clear of a question, but they were able to say, help number 2. And I'm like, okay, now I know exactly where you need. And because this was presented on the projector, I could help them either at their desk, or I could help them remotely, like if they needed something done really quick, and they were fascinated by this. So this was a very, very, very valuable tool, and I think the key to my entire presentation. So with that in mind, let's try it. So if you could please click on link number 6 in your bit.ly, or click right here or click in this blue box on your presentation if you're following along. Should take you exactly to that spot. Oh, I just forgot to edit this title here. Was this the right one? Oh yeah, I just messed up over here. I apologize for that. So when you would do this, see, our neurosurgeon did a fantastic job. I would say, we're going to start on box number 1. So box number 1, please type in your title. And your title is what you want to be when you grow up. So you would fill in that title there. And then box number 2, now let's write a complete sentence. Now let's copy what you wrote down in your journal. So they had to rely on what they physically wrote down on their journal in order to transfer that onto this box number 2. And then on box number 4, that's where they would put their name. And then box number 3 was the hardest, because you had to teach a series of multiple steps. And this is bothering me. I'll go through and fix this right now. I can't. I apologize for this. Like I said, I got it like 95% great. Okay, so box number 3 had a multi-step process, and I put a picture of a camera here, so that would symbolize, oh yeah, with the camera, you take a picture. And with that, so say here, our Secretary of State, they would have to click on the mountain logo here. And we had to learn the word mountain. We had to learn the sign for mountain. They would click on there and then click on search the web. And that alone took like a day when I was teaching Google Slides. And then here they would have to, when they would search for the image, I taught them to type in your title from box 1 here, directly there. And they quickly learned that if they wrote down the wrong spelling in their journal, that meant that they would type the wrong spelling here in box number 1, which also meant that they would also type in the wrong spelling in for search for images. So this made them aware that they had to copy down exactly the words that they saw from the board in order to have the correct picture for their slide. So I see that we want to be a teacher. That's fantastic. Thank you, Gina. We want to be a party planner. That's fantastic. And a candy, oh, that is an ideal job. A candy inspector. Oh, another police officer. And that's me. Is that what I did? Yes, that's the one that I made. And then over here, we have a Secretary of Education. Now this is the correct slide. Did I mess up? I'm trying to see if I did this right. No, I think we did. Okay. Are there any questions about Google Slides up until this point? Or did I put the wrong one? Let me check. See, I might have put the wrong one. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, okay. I'll do that later. Okay, I'm going to assume there's no questions, and I'm going to move on if that's okay. I'm a little bit behind here. I want to make sure I gave you the right information and didn't lose you here. Now we're on slides. I apologize. This is an excellent learning opportunity because just like I messed up right this second, I do this in class all the time. I said, boys and girls, I'm sorry. I had a lot of things on my mind and I'm honest and transparent. And when they relate with me, they say, Mr. Lopez, you didn't do that. I'm like, oh, that's right. I didn't do all that stuff. So this is an awesome thing to learn here. So here we have Sophia Sorensen. See, this is the right one. I apologize. I put the wrong link in there. I will fix this. But you guys have the right link. I just presented with the wrong link. So you are fantastic. And that's what I would tell my students. Archaeologists. That's great. Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on. I feel a lot better now. Okay, so that was Google Slides. Google Slides is a very powerful tool. And student work. So this is where paper meets digital. So I strongly believe in the developmental process of a first grader that they do need basic penmanship skills. They do need to work on their fine motor skills, and using a pencil is very vital for their success in learning those skills. So this student wanted to be a soccer player. They wrote down soccer player correct on their paper, but as you can see, they wrote it down incorrectly on their Google slide, which for me, that's not a big deal because they were still able to do the project and to complete the project, which was to transfer their paper ideas over into a digital platform. Now, as you can see on their paper, they have X's, and those X's was how I taught my students to skip a line when I wrote on the board, and they wrote them here. So I'm very explicit and very direct when I teach. That is the student work. They want to be a soccer player. This other student wanted to be a doctor, and they wrote all these things down for being a doctor. And this student here wanted to be an artist. And as you can see on the right-hand side, they were just able to write that, and that's all they wrote. And with me, that's okay. They were still learning the process of technology, which there's nothing wrong with that. We take it one step at a time. So for me, the student on the right that completed that work, that was a huge success because they were able to complete all 4 boxes, 1 with a title, 2 with a sentence to the best of their ability, 3 with a photo, which is a multi-step process, and then number 4 with their name. So this huge success for me. sorry, for the student. Are there any questions about student work and the transferring of their paper to digital work?
I have a question about the slides.
Okay.
How
will
did
go
you
on.
make it so that they can't move
So
the
student
numbers?
presentation. So now we tie all those tools, we stick them all into one, and this is
Ryan?
what my goal. Yes.
Ryan, there was a question.
Okay, great.
You want to repeat the question, whoever asked it? So I'll repeat it. So the question was, when you've created these slides, how do you create a template so that the students can type in it, but they can't like move the numbers and things around?
Fantastic. I will try to save that for the end of my presentation. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, so let me just show you this part, and then I will explain how that works. It's a little bit more complex, but like I said, just try it and it all works out. It's fantastic. So this was my goal. It was to have a student, a first grade ELL English language learner, create a presentation and to present as if they were a 6th grade student. So now I put it all together using all those tools. And this is what it looked like. As you can see here, the student had a Chromebook in front of them. On the Chromebook was their Google Slide presentation. Behind them was the same presentation on a second Chromebook. So they knew to go up there to find their presentation. And then on the bottom, they knew to find the presentation also on their Chromebook. And on top of that, I had another Chromebook behind the Chromebook that you see on the very, very bottom. And they were able to record themselves speaking on Flipgrid. So like I said, multi-step process, multi-tech process. And I just showed them the routine, and they did this all independently without me on their own. So with that, I have their presentation on the left. And I do have a media release, but this could be any student at your school that does not speak English or that has a limited English ability. And I lost my mouse. Here we go. So this is what they did. And like I said, they have to read their own work. And the student was very excited to read, and they're very proud of what they did.
Hello, my name is Alfonso, and I want to be a soccer player when I grow up. And Leo Messi works for Barcelona, and he scores goals, and I think being a soccer player is cool.
So that, to me, this was like a big, huge experience. The student did everything that I asked for them to do, and they had to do it. They followed the entire process, and this is an amazing feat. And from that, we go on to our next student that wanted to be a doctor, and here we go.
Hello, my name is Albert. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. Doctor can help. The doctor help. Nurse help and be sicker. I want to be a doctor.
So there you go. The student read everything exactly as they wrote it from their Google slide. And one thing the students asked, well, if I didn't write it on the slide, can I still say it? I said, yes, your slide, those are just your ideas. You're always able to speak in a complete sentence. So that's what that student did there, which was great. And then here's another student. This is my student that just wrote this down. They did follow the whole process, and let's see how they did.
Hello, I'm Sasha.
So there you go. The student was able to go up. They were not able to find their exact slide, which is fine, but they still did the whole thing. They went through the whole process. They got up in front of the class, they recorded themselves, and they made their presentation. Are there any questions about the student presentation? Okay, for the attendee that had a question about Google Slides, I'll just jump into that right now because I have a lot more content, and I don't want to skip over all that content. So for the Google Slides, it's right here. What you would do for this is you would go to where it says, let's see, I get lost here. So slide, edit master. So once again, it's slide and edit master. And as you can see, when the student needs to create a new slide, they only get one option because I was able to remove all those other options that were available. So this is the only slide that they can create. So you go to slide, edit master, and this is the master here, right back here. You could click here for the text box. This text box will appear on everyone. Now they can delete the text box themselves. So this is something you always just copy and paste right into that slide. But the background here, you can edit the shape. You can change the color. That's right here. You can change this background on, and you can change this one. You can add your photo. So the only thing here that the students can, I mean, the students don't know how to edit the master per se, but they can, when you go back to the end product, when the student has the slide here, they will delete the text box, and then they don't know how to do it. So you teach them to press the button undo, and then that's where it goes. Now you as a teacher, you can just copy this one. You just press the control copy. You can copy this one and just paste it into the one where they deleted it, and that's how you can save them a couple of you can save their anxiety from there. And the same goes for the text box and for the name box. So those boxes will get moved around, probably get erased as well. And as you can see here, you can change the color before you put it down when you edit the master slide. So if I want to change this color here, I would just go here and I would apply the color that I wanted so that they could have the text color that you wanted, just so everything is uniform and everything blends. But that's just me. And I do let the kids change this color or to add emojis, and then that's a whole another fun word here. So if that's, I hope I was able to answer your question for this one. And I'm a little bit short on time. I always plan for more than what I have. But if you are on Flipgrid and you would like to dive deeper on Flipgrid, I do have, this is number 7 on your Bitly. If you would like to know some of the things that I did on Flipgrid and how I did them, there's a couple of tips here that I did. You think this one, you do not have to be logged in. This is a public Flipgrid grid that I created, or actually it's called a group now. And then here are some topics that I have added to the Discovery Library on Flipgrid. This is very, very fun. And thank you very much. And if you could please complete the survey, it's number 10 on your Bitly link.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian, for coming. And I think really raising the bar of what's possible to do with 6-year-olds. I'm really impressed at your skills in chunking it out and making it manageable for them. I did put the schedule link in the chat and also the evaluation link. Any final questions for Brian or comments?